All right, YouTube, it is Mr. Mean coming at you this fine Monday, September 30th, 8:05 p.m. I've got Dave on the line here. Dave, please introduce yourself, good sir.
Hello, I am Dave Silva, author of Fractured Kingdoms and Metahumans Rising, contributing author to Accessible Games Quarterly, and occasional AP game runner type person.
So Dave here has a cool little game, and perhaps you've heard of it, called Metahumans Rising. And another one I saw on the website. What's the other one?
So the other main product is Fractured Kingdom. That was our first release back in 2013.
2013. And what's cool about House is, am I saying it right? Is it House DoK?
House DoK.
House DoK is 99% of your titles are pay what you want, which I think is super cool. Because, you know, let's face it, money's tight for everybody. Clearly, as I say often in the gaming industry, nobody in this industry is rich, at least not from RPGs or gaming. They may be rich from their day job, but they're not rich from gaming. As far as money goes. Now, of course, enrichment in life is a totally different story. But what's the thought behind that? Is it just altruistic? Is it just you want to put it out there for people to get it and make it easy?
So a few things. One, definitely in the not rich camp myself, but when COVID first hit, there were so many people in the games industry saying, I don't know how I can maintain my hobby. I don't know, like I'm gonna have to stop buying RPGs, stuff like that. Like new products, I want them, I can't get them, right? And so for a few years, everything was pay what you want, right?
Right.
And the thought behind it was we wanted to make gaming accessible, especially while people were struggling due to the pandemic. And we do have some paid products, like the core books are paid. There's some community copies left on our itch site.
Mm-hmm.
So even that, if you want the PDF, you can get that as a community copy. Although, you know, pay what you want and, you know, help to support us. And then, of course, the physical books are paid products, right?
Right.
There are physical books for both Fractured Kingdom and Metahumans Rising. But that's why so much of our content is pay what you want.
Yeah, excellent. I'm just trying to get the camera going here. For some reason, my OBS is being silly. That is super awesome. And there is a plethora of superhero goodness up there. Why don't you give us the 5-minute or less elevator pitch for Metahumans Rising? Why should I play it instead of Mutants and Masterminds or DC Heroes or Champions?
So as a fan of spandex, as a fan of comic books, something that I believe as a game designer is you're expressing your vision, and if you're going to go through the process of creating a new engine, instead of just writing a setting, it has to offer something different. And one of the things that we wanted to express is in comic books as a medium, you have a level of creativity that we weren't seeing in a lot of the more formal superhero RPGs, right? So one of the things we like to say, like if you were going to make the Human Torch in Metahumans Rising, right? You have a power called like Flame On or Body of Fire, right? It lets you fly. It hurts people if they touch you because you're on fire, and you can throw fireballs. You don't have to put any other details around that, right? If I want to create a cage out of fire, if I want to do like an area of effect supernova thing, I expend a resource willpower to push myself to do these more fantastic stunts that are outside my everyday core concept, right? And so that lets you bring in that creativity that you see in the comics to the game table. And then also, willpower as a resource is generated by playing to your character's motivations, right? We have these things called drives. Drives are things that push you beyond your limits. And you could have a drive that's something to the effect of, with great power comes great responsibility, right? Or to uphold truth and justice, right? Just to name a few just random concepts that I'm sure haven't been used before.
Right. Never.
Right. But as you play to that, you generate willpower, right? And you can have drives that aren't necessarily like a motivation. You can have a drive like balancing my personal life and my superhero life, or my Aunt May, right? Mm-hmm. Again, just random name I've picked, right? Relationship, no real correlations to anything. But as a player, you're empowered to draw your drive into a scene, right? So if the GM says, hey, there's this bank robbery going on, you as a player say, oh, I was trying to get to my Aunt May's house to bring her groceries. I now have to stop that to prevent this robbery from happening, right? And then as I have that scene later on where I'm now repairing my relationship, I generate willpower. Which, again, fuels your cool abilities that you can do.
Right. Which is what it's all about. How long have you been a fan of the superhero genre?
Mid-'80s?
Yeah. Right around me.
Probably earlier than that.
Yeah. I started collecting comic books when I was 10. So that would have been 1977. So
okay.
Yeah, so and that was the treat. If I did good, Mom would bring me down. I grew up in Brooklyn, so she would take me down to the corner store, you know, and there would have the comic book rack on the spinny, and I would grab a couple comic books, and bada bing, bada boom, I had my comics. I'm an Incredible Hulk guy. He's my favorite. He's always been my favorite. Wolverine's a close second. Obviously, with DC, it's Batman, Superman. For DC, Green Lantern's probably got to be my favorite. Plastic Man, a real close second, because he was just so snarky back in those comic book days. But how much, obviously, you know, role-playing games stem from somewhere, our desire to create and or do something that we can't do in normal human life. So if you, Dave, were a superhero, what would your power be?
Well, I want to go back to something you said, and then I'll come back to that question. I'm totally stalling, but this will make sense.
Gonna bring it circle.
So I think one of the comics that left just a long-lasting impression on me was a what if, and it was like, what if the Hulk remained the barbarian king, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Right. And I picked it up in a long box in a random comic book store. I'm from Manhattan.
Oh.
It was like a comic book shop that was in a residential building on top of a bodega. There was like a psychic above it, right? Like I think you can picture you're from New York.
Yeah.
And there was just something about that one. Not because it was a what if, because I'd read what ifs before, but this was also the issue where the Watcher showed you the origins of the Eternals, the Deviants, the mutants, and even humans in Marvel Comics.
Nice.
And it was such a payoff when they did the Earth X series. I don't know if you followed comics in the 2000s or not, but that was just such a great payoff to see that like pulled back in from just a random what if 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
But if I could pick a superpower, I like the main Wolverine, so we'll go with the regeneration, not the spiky claw bits.
Regeneration would be pretty solid. I'm not gonna lie.
Get rid of those doctor bills.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Lord
I'm not a
knows.
big drinker anyway, so I don't have to worry about like not being able to get drunk. I'm
Right.
fine with that.
Yeah, I don't drink either. So I always have these silly questions. Where did House DoK, the name, come from? Because it's DoK, correct?
It is DoK.
Yeah. Now, is that Swedish or German or?
No, that's a failed setting that never made it off the ground.
Ah.
When I was in high school, random metalhead guy walked up to me like, "Hey, Dave, let's make an RPG together." I'm like, "Okay, about a week." And I was engaged for about 14 years. And it never launched. I actually, in a fit of madness, like took a step back. I had just played like Hero Quest for the first time, the RPG, not the board game, and said, "Let me rethink what I'm doing as a game designer." But House DoK is a legacy name from a setting that just never got published.
That's awesome. So it has some history behind it. So that's cool. Yeah. I like that. And how long have you been producing games?
So our first release was 2013. I was a contributor on a D3 like Universal adventure about like a necromancer thing. I forget if that came out before or after Fractured Kingdom though.
All right. But so you're sporting just
say
over
around 20.
So 10 years in the business.
Yeah.
And you're what? You're not a millionaire yet? You don't have a super suit or anything? Come on, what are you doing?
It's the hard way to hundreds of dollars.
All right. Well, with great powers comes great responsibility. So, you got to keep producing games because you have great responsibility with this power. I'm always a bridesmaid, never a bride. I've talked with many of my friends about making a game. I'm very verbose. I'm very outgoing, as you could probably tell. And I just never, man, when it comes time to put pen to paper, my brain just locks up. I can talk a great game, but actually just writing it out, it's not my jam. Now, I GM a ton of games, and I got no problems there. So, yeah, I feel your pain. We're never going to get rich doing this, but, man, we're going to have fun along the way.
Yeah.
It seems like you're similar in age to me. So normally I like to say, where do you see yourself in 20 years? But for me, that's depends in a nursing home. But where do you see yourself in 10, 20 years?
Well, 20 years. Hopefully with a more epic beard, right?
Well, you're working on it. You're working on it.
Like to true wizard length.
Yeah.
But
it's hard to think about, isn't it?
Hopefully watching the kiddo pick up his PhD.
There you go. Yeah, I got I have a 37-year-old, a 25-year-old, and a 7-year-old. I should have bought cable, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. My 7-year-old is amazing. He's autistic, but he's just a wonderful kid. And he keeps me young. So, yeah. So I have these weird little questions that I like to ask when I do an interview. If you could pick one person, past, present, living or past, that you could play a game with, and it could be Parcheesi, it could be checkers, just sit down and play a game with that person, who would it be?
So I saw a thing on Blue Sky the other day to what would be your like fantasy game table, like if you had a celebrity game table, and it was like some of these like celebrity D&D players, but Vincent Baker was the GM, and we're running anything but D&D. Like I don't care if it was Dogs in the Vineyard or Apocalypse World, but not D&D.
But not D&D. Excellent. Well, I'm there with you. I have a copy of Dogs in the Vineyard on my shelf. Great game. So then the next one is, you're on an airplane. You're taking a flight across the country, go see family and friends, and the plane's going down. You know you're going to crash on a desert island. You're going to be there all by yourself. There's only one RPG you can bring with you. It can't be your own. What is it?
Can I just have a blank notebook and paper, or and a pen?
Sure. You can make dice out of seashells, right? There you go. That's an original answer. I've never had that answer, so that's a very good one. And then my third one, which is always I think it says a lot about a person. Which game do you wish you would have written that would have been your brainchild, but it wasn't, obviously?
Which RPG do I wish I could have written? Oh, so here's the thing. Like, there's so many great games out there, and there's great game designers, and I wouldn't want to take that away from somebody. So I don't know, maybe something that has like 20 different writers on it, that's like super corporate produced and like edited, where no one writer really got credit for it, and take that and turn it into a labor of love instead.
There you go.
Right? Like I couldn't put an exact title on it.
That's there's no wrong answer, so that's solid. I mean, I like that. That's a very good answer. Where do you see House DoK in 10 years as a company?
So I mean, I'm going to keep putting out material for as long as I can, right? There's some stuff I can't talk about right now, but we've been pretty consistent with putting out an adventure every month until our most recent Kickstarter, and that's just because we needed some time to recover from the Kickstarter.
And you could tell me it's just you and I. I mean, nobody watches this channel, so it's. Yeah. I won't tell. I promise.
We got some cool stuff in the pipes. We currently have a number of different adventure series, and I think what I want to do is, as the arcs come to an end, turn them into fuller campaign books. So essentially, each of the different series is designed to be run as like a one shot for each of the adventures. But if you play them together, you get a broader narrative. And what I'd really like to do is I'd like to take those, compile them, like all the related stories, compile them with additional background materials, additional support materials, and say, hey, this is a campaign in a box, right? But it's spandex, so really, pick up like 2 or 3 of these, run them at the same time. Mm-hmm. Right, because it's the same world.
Right.
And that way you're not fighting the same villains every week. You're cycling them through. The GM is throwing in some of their own concepts to broaden things out.
Right.
And you can have what feels like a very, like you're going to be in the spandex for the campaign.
Yeah. I like that. That sounds very cool. Paul Wade Williams of Savage Worlds and all of the games that he's done did a really cool thing with Hellfrost. I don't know if you ever looked at that, but he created this fantasy world, very Germanic, very Norse feeling, and the world is slowly getting colder. The Hellfrost is enveloping the world, and of course there's the evil entities that go along with that. But what he did is he created this world, and he said, I'm going to give you a canvas and you're going to paint the painting. So he gives you just enough information on each region of the world, and then it's left up to the GM to populate it with what he wants. But you've got a framework, so you've got a little bit of what the big commerce is, what's the big product that area produces, and so on and so forth. And here's where some of the big castles are, but there's nothing that says you can't put a castle right here, and that kind of thing. So I love it when game designers do that and give us, the GMs, the playground to play in, because it's your awesome imagination that's made this world, and we're just allowed to thrive in it, and I think that is super cool, because without guys like you there's no guys like me, because I don't have that creativity, or I don't have that ability to put it to paper like you do, but I can take it and run with it and make, you know, a fun setting or a fun world. So I personally want to thank you for having just a shit ton of stuff up on the drive-through. It's just candy, you know, and you know, pay what you want is super awesome. So I've been fiddling with the idea of doing a superhero game, but the problem with running a YouTube channel and a Discord channel is, my God, does it take a lot of time. And then on top of that, having a 7-year-old autistic child, you know, who, you know, I can't do anything until after 8 o'clock at night, you know, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, because I've got to get him settled and in bed. So that puts a stifle on the creativity. And then I just found the joys of 3D printing, which was probably a big mistake. But my gosh, what an amazing hobby. And in preparing for chatting with you, I went and looked at superhero STLs, which are the format that 3D prints come in. And oh my God, there's some really cool stuff out there. So, yeah, what a great time to be a gamer. I mean, do you foresee any of your iconics being turned into STLs or anything like that, so people could print them and use miniatures? Is that something...
So I want to jump back to something you said earlier, and then I'll answer that question. Right. One of the things that, for writing the adventures that we do, the monthly adventures that we do, I actively avoid naming characters if they're not going to be a recurring character, or naming locations unless it's going to be a recurring location. And the reason why is because I want to give you material that you can seamlessly slide into your campaign world, right? You know, I lived in Las Vegas for a lot of years. Let's make things buffet style whenever we can.
Nice, yeah. And my condolences for living in Vegas.
Thank you. I lived there in the 90s, and I was shocked at how much of a small town this big city actually was.
Yeah, that revolves around people coming in and coming out.
Yeah.
And cool place. I mean, I've never had any. I've been there many times. Funny enough, the federal law enforcement convention's in Las Vegas every year, so I used to go every year. So yeah, that's always fun.
So I was working at a gas station when they were filming Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Nice.
So you mentioned the law enforcement convention, so we're going to talk Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas now, because you know, he happens to stay at a hotel where the law enforcement convention is happening.
Right.
And so I would float between two gas stations, and one of them was right next door to where everyone was staying, and filming, right, for some of the scenes of the movie. And we had one night where it was just complete chaos because a car from the film, like, like rolled over the sidewalk into the gas station, swerved past the pumps barely, and then off over the sidewalk and onto the street again. And that was the car that Hunter S. Thompson is in. It wasn't like Johnny Depp or Benicio del Toro driving it, but that was the car that they were in.
Right.
So that's my Fear and Loathing, like my close connection to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and my connection to your police convention.
Almost dying in a gas station for the filming of a movie. What got you into role-playing games? You're obviously a comic book fan. Was it comic books, or was it just a progression, or did a friend say, hey, come check this out?
No. So what it was is so I grew up in New York. I'd spend the summers in rural Alabama, right?
My condolences.
That's where my grandmother was. And kid next door buys the Red Box, right? This is like almost mid 80s, like 84, I want to say, right? Buys a D&D Red Box, can't get any of his friends to play it. So he's like, all right, recruits me. I'm slightly younger than him. I'm slightly younger than should be playing D&D, but I'm able to catch on to the concepts quick enough. But we didn't quite understand what we were playing that first summer. And so we would just run through the first two adventures that were in the back of the book over and over again. And I can't tell you how many times I failed that save against Bargle.
But you kept trying.
But I kept trying.
And you fell in love with it.
Yeah, and so that was my first introduction. I pivoted over to Marvel Superheroes from TSR pretty quickly.
Vassar Rep.
Trying to think what there's probably another game or two in there, but the next one that was really a big portion of that era of my life was Cyberpunk 2020.
Yeah, good old Mike Pondsmith. Were you the GM or a player?
I was not yet a forever GM. I was mostly a player at that time. Occasionally, I would run a game.
Awesome.
Not often though. I mean, like in the '90s, the dynamics started to shift a little bit, and in the 2000s, I started running like almost entirely.
Right. I know the feeling. I've been a forever GM for many years. I have a good friend, Brian. He's on the channel as well, on the Discords. He's a fantastic GM, runs a lot of great games. And he gave me that break from being the forever GM. And then I just recently, with Jason Duff, who's behind Heroes and Hardships, he's running a Eclipse Phase 2nd edition game. And I'm actually a player in that. I'm playing an uplifted gorilla.
Nice.
Mercenary. Yeah, I'm having a blast. We had our first session last Wednesday, and then we have a session every Wednesday we're playing. And yeah, I'm really enjoying the system. It's a percentage-based system. It's a lot of fun, and Jason weaves a really nice tale so far. So I'm definitely looking into it.
So, have you done a review of Eclipse Phase as a setting on your channel yet?
Yes, I have. Version 1 and version 2.
So then I will just say that I love the fact that it is the love child of Altered Carbon and the Hyperion Cantos.
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed the first two books of the Hyperion Cantos.
And Altered
it was really nice to see that. Sorry, what's that?
I was going to say, and Altered Carbon is just fantastic. It's just a
yes.
The movie or the series was pretty good, but the books are way better. But that's usually the case.
I'm still upset at Netflix for not giving us one more season. They only had to do one more.
Did you see the animated version?
I did. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, same. I like the story, and
I really enjoy Altered Carbon. I'm sorry. I enjoyed Altered Carbon also. I really enjoy Eclipse Phase. I thought they did a great job of cleaning it up in 2nd edition.
Yes.
And let me just say that Meathab is just inspired.
Yeah, Alex, the lead designer behind it, super nice. I reached out to him, and you know the game is under the Creative Commons, so it's you can share it if you have a PDF copy of it. And I was like, I can't find my PDF copy, and he's like, well, he replies back, you know it's free, right? But here's a $25 voucher to the web store. You can go buy whatever you want. I'm like, you know, you didn't have to do that. I wasn't asking for anything free. I backed the Kickstarter. I wanted to get my link, you know, and whatever. So just a testament, you know, that's the cool thing about this industry and our hobby is 99.9% of everybody you meet is just amazing people. Like, I don't know if you do a lot of conventions, but I'll be at Gamehole Con in about 2 weeks. That's in Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm in Duluth, Minnesota. So it's a close con for me to go to, and I didn't have fun the very first year I went, and it's just because I didn't know anybody. I was kind of new up here, you know, and I went into it with a bad perception, you know. But then when I sat back, I'm not a D&D fan, so I have no interest in D&D whatsoever, especially after all the hubaloo with WotC and Hasbro, but I found Pathfinder, and there's so many other good games, you know, that let players be players instead of confining them in a box and saying this is what you have to do, and you know you can only do this, you know. And I won't get into it too much, but my disdain for WotC will come out, and I don't want that to happen. But
So, let me say this: like, for years, decades, I was not a fan of classes, and then I played Apocalypse World, and those playbooks, which look a lot like a class, fill a different kind of role. And it was such a different way of looking at the concept of a class.
yeah. And very well done. I love Apocalypse World. I love I actually got paid for my job, my day job, to run Dungeon World as a team building exercise. Cool. And
nice.
yeah, and I had one of the young ladies was like, "Can I be a witch?" I'm like, "You can be whatever kind of witch you want." She's like, "I want to be this gnarly, ugly bog witch," and I was like, "You can do that, you know." And so we
make that happen.
And so yeah, I went online, I found a witch playbook, and I downloaded it. I think it cost me like a whopping $1, if that. And man, she was so happy. And I think to this day she's still playing role-playing games. She had never played a role-playing game before. And so she was just tickled pink with it. And I bought her a copy. Well, actually, I bought it, but my boss reimbursed me. But I got everybody a copy of the rules. So and if they had never, but what a great concept to take something like, you know, your traditional Dungeons and Dragons and just turn it on its ear and say, sure, you can do that, but what else? You know, always adding that, you know, what else in there, or what else can you do, or what else do you do, or and you know, I love it when players will, you know, well, what are dwarves like? Well, that's a great question, Dave. Tell me, what are dwarves like? It's your world, you know, and they're like, I have a say? I get to participate? Yeah, totally. This is a shared storytelling event. And even people who have never played a role-playing game before can really get into that, you know, because they have vestment, you know, they have synergy with it, and they start jiving in their brain. You could just see the gears turning, which I think is amazing. I think Apocalypse World, any of those, you know, POA games, I don't think they get enough spotlight, you know. But they're not for everybody. They're, you know,
no, like there's definitely, like, they have their fan base, and then it just doesn't appeal to other people. I love, like, it made me interested in like how you can handle classes again.
Yeah.
Right.
And make them fun and open.
Yes.
You know, choices.
Yes, exactly.
Relevant choices.
Speaking of, like, flipping the concepts of D&D on its head, there is a game, because you were talking about playing a game as a team building exercise. There is an RPG that I think needs to be played in, like, world history class called Dog Eat Dog.
Ah, I've never heard of it.
Are you familiar with it?
No, I've never heard of it.
So Dog Eat Dog was written by some, I want to say they were, like, living in Hawaii. They were native. They were either Filipino or like, I forget their background in that sense, right? But essentially, Dog Eat Dog was an exploration of colonization, right? And it says you have one player who plays all the colonists, and everyone else who plays the now occupied peoples, right? And the person playing the colonists has the ability to call people into scenes. They cannot resist this. They have the ability to set rules and laws in the setting. They have the ability to arbitrarily have someone executed, right? The native inhabitants have to ask permission to include other people in the scenes, right? They cannot arbitrarily make actions, right? And this probably sounds like super harsh. All they've done is reframe the traditional dungeon master player dynamic.
Right.
to explore this concept of colonization.
Yeah, that sounds super cool, actually. I like games that make you think. You know, Dogs in the Vineyard is a really good one like that. You know,
Yes.
so yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many good games out there. What an age to be. I mean, you remember when we were young, we had all the time in the world but no money, and now we have the money but no time. It's like the
Yes.
cosmic curse.
I'm truly in awe of the collection behind you.
Oh, that's over 30 years of books there. Yeah, the shelves are bowing. That's inch OSB plywood basically. And yeah, I need to brace it. It's going to collapse one day. But I just bought this house last October, almost a year ago, the 18th.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and we paid way too much for it because the market up here is, as it is everywhere, is just downright stupid. But fortunately, my wife and I both have very good jobs, and so we live within our means, but most of our salary goes to this house. But this is my basement, and it is my man cave, and I love it. I run my Pathfinder game down here. I run other games, play miniature games. The next room over is my 3D printing room, where I print all the monsters for my Pathfinder game. So yeah, I'm finally, you know, I'm almost 60 years old, and this is my playpen. You know, I'll be happy to die down here.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, my wife picked out the rug. Yeah, and the shelves are, you know, they're bowing. My wife teases me that if I come home with one more book, she's gonna leave me. I'm like, quit making promises you can't keep. But yeah, you know, I've been, like I said, I've been doing this hobby since it started. You know, I have my white pamphlets of D&D, the original ones signed by Dave Arness and Gary Gygax. They are locked away nice in an acrylic box that's airtight. I need to mount it up here somewhere, but I'm just afraid that if the house ever gets broken into, somebody will steal it. So I keep it buried.
They have to know what they were looking at to steal that, though.
You'd be surprised. People steal shit if it looks valuable. And if you've got it in an acrylic case and it's hanging on the wall, it's probably valuable. But yeah, this is, you know, and I got my little recording studio. I also work from this spot. I'm fortunate enough that I can work from home a lot of the time. So this is I live down here basically. I have a microwave just outside the room and a fridge. So my wife doesn't even have to see me for a week at a time. I got enough food, you know, when the apocalypse happens, I got plenty of ammunition. I'm good. Come on over. we got room.
It'll be a bit of a drive.
Yeah. What part of the country are you in?
So I am in the Bay Area, California.
Oh, okay. I lived in Walnut Creek for many years, and
okay, I'm not too far from Walnut Creek.
Yeah, I was in Concord for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was stationed in Oakland and Alameda in my military days. So
okay,
yeah, so Naval Base Alameda, which I believe is closed now. NAS.
Well, after they found out that that's where the nuclear vessels were, they had to close it.
Yes, exactly. When you why does your mouse have a long tail? Yes. And then I was in the Coast Guard, so I was stationed at Coast Guard Island there in Alameda. So used to go to Tita's House of Games. I don't know if that's still there. It used to be the big game store in that area.
So I think the ones that are closer to me are like
Games of Berkeley.
It's a Castle something. Yes, or maybe it's Noble Knight Games.
Noble Knights, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Unfortunately, so you asked if I go to a lot of conventions, and the reality is, the pandemic. So I moved to the Bay Area, July 2019.
Oof.
Right. I was in corporate housing for a couple of months. Got settled in, and my wife, girlfriend at the time, go out on our first date in like a year. February 2020. We go to see a cabaret show in SF, and we get engaged. We have just enough time to plan a wedding, book our flights, book our Airbnb, contact an officiant, and the entire world is shut down.
Some would say that might have been a sign from God.
Well, we still got married.
Awesome. Awesome. Congrats.
We just did it on the beach in Santa Cruz.
That's a
we figured
good way to do it.
We should do it in the middle capital of the world.
Yeah.
And we haven't, like, only this last year have we really started exploring the Bay Area
Right.
in any meaningful way.
Yeah. There's a lot of great places to see. Obviously Marin County, you know, that whole area. There's even some really nice, you go up in the Oakland Hills is beautiful. You know, there's a lot of nice places.
I went to the observatory for an event,
Yeah.
and we're like, oh, this is really beautiful. And, you know, like, I'm from New York in the 80s, right? Which my wife is likes to use the Brooklyn Nine-Nine line, which is basically The Purge. And so, you know, like, when I was growing up, people say, oh, Oakland is very dangerous. And I'm just seeing, like, these beautiful multi-million-dollar homes and this observatory. It's just gorgeous. And I'm like, oh, well, why don't we take Surface Streets home and, you know, have a nice drive home after the event? Let me stop and get gas. I'm like, oh, this is the Oakland I've heard about.
Yep.
And it's, like, literally a block apart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's amazing. Yeah, but, you know, Manhattan's the same way. Brooklyn's the same way. You know, you got a pretty nice area, and then you go a block, and it's a shitstorm. You know, so look at the Village. Look at Greenwich Village. You go into the Village, it's gorgeous. Walk a block out, you could probably get mugged.
So I went to New York in 2022 for an event, and, like, my New York is not there anymore.
No, my Brooklyn's not there, and it's all single family homes now. I grew up in a brownstone, you know. I mean, it's just, my dad would throw me out of the second story window, because when the plows would come through, they just pile, you know, the snow would just get piled right up, and so you couldn't open the front door. So my dad would throw me out the second story window. Not throw me, but, you know, he would let me out. I'd drop down to the snow, and then I would have a shovel, and I would shovel out the door. So my dad, because my mom and dad managed the brownstone. My dad was a beat cop, but.
So you had, like, multiple families in the brownstone?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically a tenement. It's where the poor people lived.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't exist anymore. They're gone. It's all single family homes now. In fact, one of my friends I'm still in touch with said it's Little Manhattan now. That's kind of how they.
So when I was growing up, there were brownstones, like, not far from us, and, like, all of them were like, they're like 3 stories, 4 stories. Every story was, like, effectively its own apartment.
Right.
Right. You know, you'd have 3 or 4 families living in each building, and so, yeah, like, it's exactly as you're describing, and I would have never expected them to, like, revert back to being single family homes.
Right.
But here we are.
Yeah, and then, you know, people are paying $4,000 for a closet, you know, to live in. So
yeah,
I'm glad you know what? I'm glad I'm in Minnesota. I'll stay here, and I like the cold. So this is the perfect place for me. You know, I get 3 weeks out of the year where it's -20 or better, and I'm happy. My wife, not so much.
You're happy at -20.
Yeah, I like the colder the better. It doesn't bother me. I mean,
So do you obviously have, like, a special suit to walk out during the summer months. Maybe like a freeze gun. Like, have a thing for diamonds.
Yeah. How'd you know? Just no really bad Austrian accent or anything like that, though. No, I prefer. My first duty station in the military was Alaska. Sitka.
Was what?
Sitka, Alaska was my first.
Oh, okay.
On a buoy tender, the CGC Woodrush, which is no longer in existence. It was cut down for scrap in early 2000, I believe. Yeah, so I you know, I was always that kid that was outside winter round in shorts and just a little parka. You know, cold doesn't just never bothered me. I got thick blood, and now I'm fat, so that's even more insulation. So life is good, and my wife's an amazing cook. So, but as far as what's on the horizon for House DoK, what besides some cool story arc books that may be coming? What anything new? Any other productions that you want to maybe give everybody a peek or tell everybody to keep an eye out on?
All right, so we're coming into the holiday season, and if you've been following our work, you know that the holiday season kicks off in October for us. 2 years ago, we had The Adventures of Spider-Jack in the Cotton County Forest. Last year, Spider-Jack Can't Go Back. This year, Spider-Jack will be meeting the Pumpkin Prince.
The Pumpkin Prince.
Yes.
Excellent.
The third installment of our Spider-Jack stories. If you are a fan of like 70s and 80s horror movies, I think you will enjoy the Spider-Jack adventures. There are many nods to multiple different films of that era. And then it includes the original artwork from Jake Perez, who created Spider-Jack. And this year we will be bringing in our third installment.
Nice. Any Kickstarters planned in the future that you can let us know about?
So we're just coming off of a Kickstarter. And we launched just before Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere RPG Kickstarter.
Yeah. The death of every other Kickstarter.
We had some momentum coming in, and then the wind came out of our sails. We're coming to the holiday season, and so I'm going to be focusing on our adventures for the next couple of months. And what I want to do, so just to be clear, we were not successful in our Kickstarter, right? The Kickstarter was for a project called House of Steel, which would have been the first world book for Metahumans Rising. Essentially, it was a expanded setting from the implied setting that you get in the core book and all the adventures, which use a shared world. It included expanded character creation options, new factions, just a ton of cool stuff, including like repeatable adventures. And so we want to take the feedback that we got during that Kickstarter, and I don't have a date for it yet.
Okay.
I don't know what the shape will be. But I don't know if we're going to try and redo House of Steel or if we're going to do something else. One of the things that we found, we are an indie title, right? Metahumans Rising, we're 100% independent. We don't have any major backing. Our fans are, people that have found us organically. And which Metahumans Rising launched in 2019. I planned to go to a number of cons in 2020 to help promote the book.
That didn't happen.
That didn't happen. And so we'll probably have another crowdfunding event. I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm not sure what the shape is going to take. But we are trying to take our lessons from what happened with the House of Steel. And if that lesson is, don't launch around the time of, the highest funded RPG Kickstarter of all time.
How could you have known, though, right? I mean, in all fairness, that's not on you. That's just bad timing. you know what? But, you know, here's the fickle thing about Kickstarter. Some things that you'd think would never make it wind up blowing up, and other things that you're like, oh, this is going to be a sell, and they flop. So it's just, you know, obviously you're on the Discord for Mr. Mean Speaks, so you have access to the publishers. So please feel free to advertise there. Put your links in there. The meanies are pretty cool, and you know, they'll support you. I think it's a cool product. I was flipping through my the PDF earlier, and the format is not for me as far as the layout goes, but I can see that it's an indie game, and for that it's kudos, because anybody who doesn't know how hard it is to publish a book and put yourself out there, you know, it's a labor of love. It's a lot of work, you know, and then add a Kickstarter to that, and you might as well just gouge your eyes out with a spoon, because it is, you know, highs and lows. And then, you know, like you said, Cosmere came in and stole all the wind, you know. And I personally have a love-hate relationship with Kickstarter, because I think Kickstarter should be for guys like you know, indie publishers, indie board game designers, indie card designers, guys like Monty Cook, you know, Brian Sanderson. Those guys don't need to go to Kickstarter. You know, to me, it's totally unfair. That's just I've voiced this opinion many times on my channel. I don't want to get into it too much, but I think it's doing a disservice to the community. You know, yeah, it's the greatest selling RPG of all times. How many copies of that are you going to see in the discount bin in 2 years?
So let me say two things. One, the Kickstarter for Metahumans Rising, the core book, about a week or 2 weeks into it, the Kickstarter for Numenera launched. So you mentioned Bonnie Cook.
He's the biggest offender of Kickstarter, as far as I'm concerned.
And I appreciate that Pinnacle's last crowdfunding for Savage Worlds was actually done off the Kickstarter platform.
Right. Was that Necessary
Right.
Evil?
I appreciate it. What's that?
Was that Necessary Evil, or was that Rift?
Oh, that was the Savage Rifts, Atlantis and the Demon Seas.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I appreciate. So that. Same thing.
Yeah. And so I without getting too deep into it, I want the like, crowdfunding should be for people that if you don't fund, you don't see the project. It shouldn't be for, this is actually just how I collect my pre-sales.
Right. Exactly. And that's exactly what Monty Cook and a lot of other, you know, Savage World's guilty of it too. It's a pre-order system, and it shouldn't be that, because here's the thing. Monty Cook has enough clout that he could go to any book publisher and say, I want to make a book. And they would say, okay, you know, and he writes a check and it's done, you know, and then he just sits back and collects all the money. I think it's unfair to the little guys, but then again, you know, that's free enterprise, that's commerce, that's, you know, the big eat the little, and so on and so forth. And, you know, everybody's scratching to get their slice of the pie. I get it. I don't know. It seems wrong, in my opinion, that guys can abuse that system, where someone who has a cool concept and a cool idea may never get seen, because Joe Blow only has X amount of dollars to spend on a game, and he blew it on Cosmere or Monty Cook, you know, and he'll never see Metahumans Rising, even though it could be, I'm not saying it is, but it could be a better game, or you give them much more fulfillment, because it's not pandering to the masses. Not to say that Monty Cook or Cosmere are going to do that, but I honestly do believe, mark my words, Mr. Mean said it first, in 2 years you'll see copies of Cosmere sitting in the discount bin. It's a flash in the pan. I hate to say it.
Okay, so we kind of like danced around this, and this has been just important for me as a publisher, is to support our core product, right? Yeah. A lot of indie publishers, they'll release a product and they don't have the ability to support it.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that keeps me going with these monthly adventures, is I want you to be able to pick up this game that is not something that your local comic book store. By the way, if anybody out there has a comic book store, Studio 2 Publishing is my distributor. You can get copies, right? There are physical copies.
And it's also available on Drive-Thru RPG.
Yes.
Yep. So, and quite a bit is available on Drive-Thru RPG.
But if you pick this up, it's like, hey, I want to try this out. The game is supported, right? Like there's 20 plus different adventures, all of it with additional supplemental content that you can just incorporate however you choose, right? So it's not like, oh, well, this is cool, and now I have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's another thing that I think you, Dave, is attainable. You're on my Discord, and I'm sure you're on a couple others, but you're pretty positive on the Discord, and people can reach you, right? I think you got a Twitter account I saw, or
I am formally off of Twitter.
Oh, good. I don't do
I am
Twitter.
on Blue Sky.
Yeah, you're on what?
I'm on Blue Sky now.
Blue Sky, okay. But yeah, the thing is you're attainable. Reach out to Monty Cook. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
you're not going to get him. You know, the thing is your product is attainable. I don't, and I'm not trying to be. I don't want to pick on. I'm not picking on Monty Cook. I love his games. They're not for me, but I do like the concept of games. Fall of Gods, I think, is a beautiful book, and I love it. I've read it several times. Or Gods of the Fall is a wonderful setting, and it's very unique. I just wish it didn't use the Numenera setting or whatever Monty Cook's engine is called.
The rule set, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a fantastic setting book. But the thing is you're attainable. Someone can reach out to you and email you or talk to you on Discord. You're you know, and if they have questions about the setting or a mechanic or whatever, you're there. You know, you see what I'm saying? And, you know, you were very polite. You reached out to me on Facebook. I hardly ever, or no, MeWe. You reached out to me on MeWe, and I'm
all platforms.
Yeah, and, you know, I went to MeWe because I detest Facebook. If I could meet it in a dark alley and put two in the head, I would. But I can't. So it's a necessary evil if you want to grow your brand, if you want, you know, so on and so forth. So, and I have a number of people that, you know, like the Facebook. So, and it's great. You know, I don't have a beef with it. I'm not a big fan of that kind of social media. MeWe kind of fit the need of what I wanted. I only see what I want to see. I don't get ads. I don't need to, you know, get Asian girls, you know, who need husbands and things like that. I don't want to see all that stuff, you know. So
I was a refugee of G+.
Yeah, same. Love G+. What a great community. And you know, MeWe was where we all landed, you know, and it's just unfortunately Facebook it's that useful demon that we have to barter with, you know, because it is the #1 platform. You know, it's there, and it does work. I mean, you know, I post my videos there. Hopefully this is going to bring some more traffic to your drive-through or to Studio 2. Make sure we'll put links down in the doobly-doo to your drive-through store and everything. So now COVID's over. Are you going to plan on doing some conventions? Are you going to be running some games? You're in the Bay Area, so you've got. Well, no. You're in the Bay Area now, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've got a ton. DundraCon, Pacificon, Stratacon. You've got a ton of conventions in that area.
So last year I did DundraCon, and that was great. I did Big Bad Con as well.
Yep. Awesome.
And that was fun, but it was a very different crowd.
Yeah.
This year, with the ramp up to the Kickstarter, we ended up we had to skip the convention because we were trying to save for the Kickstarter, make sure we could do that. But I think what we're going to try and do is pick 1 or 2 conventions for next year. Possibly DundraCon again, and then I've heard good things about Pacificon. It's something in the Bay Area.
Yeah, it's a great con, and your travel expenses are slim to none at that point, you know. So you don't have to worry about.
When I was in Atlanta, we did Dragon Con and MomoCon every year.
Yeah, Dragon Con's phenomenal. Like I said, I'll be at Gamehole Con, which is a pretty decent one here in the mid northwest, Wisconsin. But we just had one in Duluth a couple of weeks ago. I didn't even know about it. I was like, "There's a convention in Duluth? What?" But yeah, next year I'll try to attend. But yeah, let's see what else. We talked about what's coming up. You got some cool things in the works, it sounds like. You're attainable. People can reach out to you. I
want to answer. You'd asked a question, and we kind of like. I went back to something else. STLs. So Metahumans Rising uses theater of the mind because we want to abstract things like comic book panels, right? Like you don't really get into a lot of tactical movement. It's like this is close, this is short, and we have general ranges, and then like take in the landscape and factor that in.
Right.
So there's not really a big call for miniatures.
Yeah, but don't discount the cool ability of a painted miniature sitting in front of you to spark the imagination. We play Pathfinder Theater of the Mind until I got a flat screen TV and mounted it in a table, and now I use digital maps, and now I'm printing 3D miniatures, and the wow factor, oh my gosh, the wow factor. When you throw that big bad monster on the table and the players go, and they're, we're gonna die, and then they wind up, I don't even want to talk about it. I'm telling you, they chewed through my bad guys like there was no tomorrow. But yeah, no, and I don't know of too many superhero games.
What I was gonna say is I wouldn't rule out an STL.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone's play is different.
Right. And there's, this is what I say about role-playing games. If everyone at the table is engaged and having fun, there's no wrong way to play. If your idea of fun is crude jokes and, drinking Mountain Dew and eating Cheetos, as long as everyone's doing it and having fun, that's all that matters. I don't think there is a wrong way to play as long as everybody is on the same page and having fun. Yeah. And that's what matters. Yeah. And that's the great thing about RPGs, because, again, in the days when I started playing, there wasn't even polyhedral dice. We used chits in a plastic cup. And that's what we used.
Oh yeah, you were saying you had the pamphlets.
Yeah, that was I didn't get polyhedral dice until I think D&D Blue Box. I think I got my first.
The expert set.
Yeah,
expert?
I think it was
basic expert.
Yeah, and then I got a real nice set. In fact, I still have somewhere. I have the original crayon that came with my first box set of D&D to color in the dice.
Yeah, no, my first set of dice came in the red box, with the crayon, you had to color it in.
Yeah.
And then, they last for a couple of months and just kind of crumble to dust on you.
Yep. And mine are long gone. But now I can print my own dice. So I have a 3D printer. So it's amazing. I would love to see some STLs of some of the characters there. So hit up your fan base. If you guys are fans of Metahuman Rising and you know how to make STLs, make some of those characters. I think it would be awesome. It's always super cool. Less is more, and sometimes just a little 3D model sitting in front of you to spark imagination is a wonderful thing. Sir, we're coming up on the just over an hour. I want to thank you for taking your time to chat with me, being a member of the channel. You've been very accommodating and fun to chat with on the channel as well. It's my little slice of heaven, as they say, and I think we have a pretty awesome community there, and I'm glad that you're a part of it. So thanks for spending some time with me tonight. I hope to see more things on Metahuman Rising and see where you go, and then we'll get you back maybe in the midst of the Kickstarter or the next big book. We can get you on and we can talk about it and promote it and go from there. But you're always welcome to use the promotions channel, publishers channel, in the Discord there, and then feel free to share this video wherever you like. And I hope fortune comes to you in many different ways, and I want to see some cool stuff. Because if you guys haven't checked out Drive-Thru RPG or Studio 2, go check it out, because Dave's got some awesome stuff up there, and there's, man, so many adventures. I mean, is it one a month? Is that what you've been doing?
Until last month.
Right. Wow.
Because even the month that we launched the Kickstarter, we did a solo adventure, like a self-guided thing where you can learn the rules.
I need to pick that one up. I'll admit, I've been lackadaisical. I just haven't had time lately. Like I said, this 3D printing is a monster, because I'm really enjoying it, but man, it eats up some time. And then, of course, with school starting, my son is in special ed and stuff, so we have physical therapy and all that, OT and all that stuff we have to take him to. But I'm thoroughly enjoying looking at the book and everything. I keep up the great work. We need more people like you to help us with our imagination and keep us grounded in fantasy and sci-fi and superheroes to make the day go by. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Anything you want to say to everybody before we sign off?
Oh, sure. Yeah, if you want an easy entry point into Metahumans Rising, pick up Mistaken Identity. It is a self-guided solo play game that will kind of teach you the rules along the way. You play as the superhero Nox, who is a reformed criminal who gets caught in the wrong place at the wrong time when she's trying to stop a drug lab, and the police think that she's the one behind it. So,
yikes. Well, and apropos, yeah, that is awesome. I'm definitely going to go pick it up, and maybe on my lunch hour I'll try to run myself through it. I'm probably my own worst player, though. As always, guys, check out all of Dave's stuff at Drive-Thru RPG. Feel free to use my affiliate link. Doesn't cost you anything, and it puts a penny in my pocket. And then hit up Studio 2 Publishing if you want physical copies of the book. Dave, thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure. We will chat more on Discord, I'm sure, as the days go by. I'm looking forward to your next project. To everybody out there in the land of mean, thank you so much for all your support, your love, and your friendship. Thank you so much. If you haven't checked out the channel, give a thumbs up. Go check out Dave's stuff on Drive-Thru RPG. House DoK Publishing or Enterprises?
House DoK Productions.
House DoK, DoK Productions. Check it out on Drive-Thru RPG. As always, peace and hair grease. And remember, Mr. Mean says, be nice. We're going to fade to black. If I can figure out what I'm doing here. There we go.